Hello? Hello? Okay. We have till 3:15 with me, and then somebody else is going to come in here. Then Dave's going to come in and talk about marketing. So, I do not have an official program. My goal in my breakout session, because I knew that we weren't going to be able to answer a lot of questions during the main session, was to answer any questions. If I'm going to fall, okay, answer any questions that you have on anything that we talked about today or anything that you came here and wanted to talk about. You might have to talk loud. I'll try and hear your question. But we have about 15-20 minutes to answer any questions you have. Don't make me stand up here. Yes, ma'am. So she's got 2 mares in foal now, both on the Breeder's Choice Plus and the Metabolic. Why do you got them on the Metabolic? Why? Okay, so she was wondering, so the Breeder's Choice Plus is the vitamin and mineral supplement that we recommend for breeding horses. It's got that marine-derived calcium in there, got added levels of vitamin A, added selenium. So I would definitely keep her on the Breeder's Choice Plus through the whole pregnancy. Got the chromium in it as well. And so in the past, we always said, you know, the Breeder's Choice Plus, definitely for a broodmare that was difficult to get pregnant, and then she could go back to the orange if you wanted. But with those changes to the Breeder's Choice Plus, I really recommend, if possible, that she stay on that through the whole pregnancy, and the Metabolic is fine. Yeah, she can stay on that. Go ahead.
I have a customer with horses that will not leave the pasture licks. They're on a balancer, and they'll eat the entire thing and not touch hay or grain until it's gone.
He has a customer, and the horses love the pasture lick too much, and they won't eat anything else. They just lick the pasture lick. The pasture lick is quite sweet. We don't drive intake, and a lot of the salt blocks, the salt-based blocks, kind of their requirement for salt or desire for salt drives intake. But in that pasture lick, it is a molasses-based poured tub, so they taste pretty good. If they're just consuming it and not going away from it, they might try putting some salt in their regular feed. You might take it away every other day. I mean, just adjust them to it. Usually we do find with any of the kind of ad-lib products, they will always just stand at it and eat it at first. And usually they level out. Yeah. They could just be greedy, bored. Also, sometimes if horses have a tendency to overeat, say, a salt block or something, it can sometimes be just boredom as well. So.
Just repeat what he says.
Oh, yeah. He has customers' horses that just annihilate the lick tubs. They eat too much of the lick tub. Maybe that's a problem, maybe not. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, if you have a young horse and you're, I assume, trying to push it to maybe a futurity or whatever, you want to get him prepped in a short amount of time, can you overdo it? Of course, yes. Just as Steve Elliott, our previous speaker, more is not always better. And there are some things that you can double, triple the dose. Like if you've got a sick horse and you've got DDA and we can give more of that without any problems. There are some nutrients that are very easily excreted by the horse if you feed extra. But certainly when it comes to something like vitamins and minerals, I really don't advocate double or triple or quadrupling the dose. And it's also about balance. You know, when people are feeding young horses, and they ask me about a program, the first question I ask is, well, what is the long term? How much time do we have, and what is your goal? If the goal with the young horse is, I'm going to keep it forever, and we've got all the time in the world to let it grow slowly, then that gives us a lot more flexibility for it to take its time. The horses that are the most challenging are the ones that we want them prepped, ready for weanling shows or really young futurities. Then we definitely do need to be feeding them more to get more growth out of them, but you have to do it in balance. For example, protein gets a really bad rap with young horses growing. And if you feed too much protein, they say, oh, it's going to cause all these growth problems. And that is just a myth. It absolutely isn't correct. It's the balance between protein and energy, right? You need to make sure that if you want a young horse to grow and develop big muscles, and you're not feeding it enough protein, you will cause a problem. If you're only feeding a bunch of protein and you're not feeding enough calories to help fuel that growth, that is also a problem. So everything in balance. And yes, you can, the short answer to your question is absolutely. More is not always better. If you're in a situation where you have a short amount of time and you really have to push the growth on an animal, that's where we have to be the most intense when it comes to gut health and making sure that every small balance is in the right proportion, because the more you feed, the faster you have to do it, the more you can have a train wreck if any of those get slightly out of balance. So, you had a question? The Omega XL, is that going to be of benefit to breeding horses, mares, and stallions? 100,000% yes. Yes. No, the Breeders' XL will go away. The Breeders' Choice Plus, on top of the Breeders' Choice Plus, yes, the Breeders' Choice Plus, remember, is a vitamin and mineral supplement. So that's a different lane. And then the Breeders' XL was the omega-3 fatty acid supplement with the vitamin E, but the feeding rate was 1 pound. It was not palatable, so we've altered that to be 2 to 4 ounce feeding rate, still the DHA and the vitamin E, but then added the NAD precursor, the niacin, so that just makes it a triple threat for brood mares and breeding horses, as well as performance horses. So 100% Omega XL and Breeders' Choice Plus will be an excellent breeding program.
What about allergies?
Allergies, what about allergies for the Omega XL? Absolutely. So in the past, that's why we had the DHA Perform, because it was hard for me to get people that had a horse that had allergies and needed the anti-inflammatory benefits to get them to feed 1 pound of the Breeders' XL. So we said, okay, we can get this DHA, we can just sell it in a bag. But it was literally like selling fish food, and then the price went through the roof. So this, the combination of those three, where allergies are also a lessening in the they attack the immune system. You need fuel to support the immune system. The NAD is going to fuel the immune system. The DHA is decreasing that inflammatory response, and the vitamin E, a powerful antioxidant. So yes, for allergies, for those respiratory issues, all of the reasons why we recommended the DHA Perform or the Breeders' XL, all wrapped up now in the Omega XL. Easier for you to sell to because now it's called Omega. There's a lot of customers out there that know they need an omega. They ask for an omega supplement. And now we can, it's just a more stands alone. RJ, poor RJ. We went to do a meeting in Pennsylvania, and he had sold a pallet of E and SE, and I said, oh, I never even recommend it. I just go with the E. And he's like, shut up. The reason why we had the E and SE in the first place is, as Steve said, vitamin E and selenium go together, right? They go together like calcium and phosphorus, like copper and zinc, they go together. But selenium can be very toxic if you feed too much of it. And the majority of our customers already feed a vitamin and mineral supplement that has selenium in it. And selenium is a classic example of more is not better. There is a very narrow window of perfection when it comes to selenium. When it comes to vitamin E, though, I'm going to push that much higher. That is one where I can feed a lot of vitamin E and not have any negative effects and have positive effects. So if I'm tied to vitamin E and selenium stuck together, like in that product, I can't really push the envelope on vitamin E, because if I do that, I'm getting a wee bit too much selenium. Now, if you know that you're deficient in selenium in your area, or your program does not cover another DAC vitamin and mineral supplement, then yes, we still have a lot of folks using the vitamin E and selenium product. But for me, I do personally recommend the vitamin E by itself more, just because I have more flexibility to really increase the amount of vitamin E without any detriment from too much selenium. Katie. Can I tell you how much is too much? No, I can't off the top of my head give you a number. I can tell you that organic selenium, the selenium that we get from Alltech, is much, much, much safer than the sodium selenite, that inorganic selenium that a lot of companies will use. So you can get away with feeding a lot more of the organic selenium, the selenium yeast that we use. The place that I find it most common to have toxicities too much is actually where you would least expect it. You would least expect to find it where people are very conscientious about deficiencies. The areas that have the most deficiencies are usually the places that end up having the toxicity, because they're feeding it in their feed, they're feeding it in a vitamin and mineral supplement, then they tell me, I know my area is really low, so I'm going to do the E and SE, and now I've got another muscle supplement that I was recommended, and now we look at all these supplements and find, oh my Lord, there's selenium in every single one of these. So that's also another lesson in, and I know I'm going off topic, but it's another lesson in working. I like to work with the nutritionist to develop a program so that we're not overdoing it. The question I get the most is, how do I do the best thing for my horse? How do I give him the best program? How do I give him everything he needs, but I don't have money to burn? The way you feed your horse, the most cost-effective way, is to know exactly what you're feeding and not be just randomly overdoing it. So the problem also with selenium is, unfortunately, the signs of toxicity and deficiency are the same. The few times that I've actually seen it, it was bleeding in the cornet band. That was one of the first things that I saw. Also, they'll get really, their white will get very sensitive to the sunlight. Yes, sir. How do you decide if you're deficient or toxic? That's how then you go and you say, okay, we maybe have an issue with selenium here. We've got some bleeding in the cornet band, and we go back and we look at the diet. And if you told me my horse ate 3 buckets of E and SE, well, maybe you've got a bit of toxicity. If you say, no, I've got a client who refuses to feed any supplements, they just feed oats and hay, I'm going to say it's probably a deficiency. So it's asking a lot of questions and hearing the backstory. Yes, ma'am. That's an excellent question. So she's going to go home and introduce some new DAC products to her horse. And we all know that you don't want to make rapid feeding changes to your horse. And so if you were to introduce a new hay or a new grain, we recommend that you do that over a 7 to 10 day window, because the bugs that live in the gut are going to take that much time to adjust to new food. When it comes to the majority of the DAC products, the vitamins and minerals, that kind of thing, we don't need to have such a long adjustment period because it's such a small dose rate that we're feeding. The caveat to that would be something like the Optimum Flex Plus. We actually have a loading dose, so we want to feed more. That's the joint supplement. We want to feed a little bit more at the beginning. Or the DAC oil, for example. The DAC oil, if we were going to feed large quantities, I've told you that it's great for putting weight on a horse and you want to go home and put a bunch of weight on your horse. You are not going to do all of that tomorrow because your horse will get nasty diarrhea. So for the most part, you do not need a big, long, drawn-out introduction period for the DAC supplements. If you've got a picky horse or a finicky horse, you might want to do it a little slowly. You might want to also mask it with a little bit of oil or a little bit of, flavor if you're worried about it. Sometimes something like the Colt Grower or the mineral supplements that are very concentrated can have a bit of a metallic taste, especially to a super picky horse. But we often find just a little bit of honey or molasses or oil even just to mix it in there. But no, you don't need a long process. Tell you about the monthly webinars. Excellent.
It's in your calendar. So every Thursday is marked with the webinar. I didn't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that. I bring great people to the team. Where's the calendar? Okay, everybody get a calendar, open it up, and it is typically the first Thursday of every month. You don't have to have a computer. You just got to have a phone. Is Lakin in here? Well, I'm going to answer my bit, and then Lakin's going to answer something. I'm going to put you on the spot, girl. Why don't you come up here, Lakin? Come on, run. Okay, so I do a monthly webinar, and it's a training webinar. And I specifically do it like I'm talking to dealers. So it's more education on trending topics, but I'm presenting it in a way that you then could turn around and talk to your customers about it. I do have a presentation online, so if you do have a computer, you can do that, but you can also phone in. But Lakin has been working on a really cool project, and I'm going to let you tell them about it.
So we're currently working with our phone company to get an option where you can call into the office after hours and listen to the webinar, a recording of it. So you just have to have a phone, and you can hopefully get transferred and pick which kind of webinar that you want to listen to.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, that.
I think one neat thing about that for you guys that don't have access to a computer is, if you're territory manager, you can get the printouts that Dr. Cubitt goes through. We can send those to you. You can have them in front of you, and you can go back and you can listen to those webinars. So we're super excited for that. Is it the same call-in number, Lincoln?
No, it would be the
Okay, the actual answer number.
So stay tuned for that. Keep up with your territory manager. I know Lakin's been working really hard on that. It's something we've talked about for years, trying to work out how to happen, and you just needed a fresh set of eyes to work on that project. Yes, sir. Daniel.
Being
Yeah. So I was talking about horses being sore, and that could be a symptom of vitamin E deficiency. And he was asking me, is it always vitamin E deficiency? It's not always vitamin E deficiency if your horse is sore. He might have a perfect diet and you just used him too much, or I don't know, he got kicked by another horse. There's a lot of reasons why he might be sore. But if you can't explain why he's sore, but you can look at his history and say, I've worked him a little extra, or even if you know the diet is perfect, he's getting plenty of vitamin E, but I am going to work him a little extra. My other buggy horse is on a stall rest, and this horse is going to get more work out of the blue than I was expecting, and maybe he's not quite conditioned for it. Adding vitamin E proactively to that horse will also help. It doesn't mean that he was deficient in vitamin E. It's just like if I don't want to get sick, flu season, I am taking vitamin C like crazy. I'm not deficient in vitamin C, but taking extra vitamin C is helping boost my immune system. So, good question, Daniel. Just because your horse is sore doesn't necessarily mean he's deficient in vitamin E. Adding extra vitamin E might help him, certainly if we couldn't explain the reason behind why, that he got hit by a car or kicked or something horrible like that. Yes, what do you want me to wrap it up?